Hey there. Welcome back to Valen Hark's fantastic, elastic, learn Japanese class trip. Do you like that? I gotta keep it fresh. Hey, we're gonna continue learning Japanese here, and today might be a shorter one, because we're gonna finish up, practice B, Renshu B, from chapter 1. We just had to open a stream right away here with Yisao, just asking, why are some names brands like Naruto spelled in katakana if they are from Japan? Number of reasons. Let's bust out the stream right away. Knowledge coming at you. Give me your brain, Yisao, and the rest of you. Give me it into my hands right now. I'm gonna try to explain things. And sometimes Japan doesn't have a good explanation. But what I can say about that is, well, number one, katakana used to be the only script. Historically speaking, let's bring this music down just a tad. There we go. Historically speaking, before we had kanji and hiragana, we had katakana. So katakana is possibly, the exclusion of manyogana, if you want to go look that up, one of the most Japanese scripts there are. These days, katakana is used almost exclusively for foreign loan words, but not always. Other occasions where they use katakana for a Japanese word is like when we would use italics in English to stress something. You can use katakana to stress it sometimes, depends on the situation. And then other times it's like, yeah, it's a Japanese character and they made it, but they want it to seem foreign. Sometimes they'll put it in katakana. There's a whole bunch of reasons. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. So, Yisao popping in with the question immediately. Yisao was waiting all week to ask that, maybe. Look, let's go. Here we are. You ready for this? Was that answer to your question satisfactory, Yisao? Because I don't think it was. But regardless, we got to continue here. Yisao says yes. You know what? You're very kind. Thank you. We're going to continue on with vocab. And first, now, I want to mention something here. Let me pop this open real quick. Last time, Denisowski was down, and we thought maybe he's down and out forever, because he didn't pay his website bills. Denisowski is back. I knew I could trust on him. Paul Denisowski, thank you. Because, well, I pulled open, you can check it here, Chapter 2. We are starting Chapter 2 vocab as we finish up Chapter 1 practice. Would you look at that? And today we're going to go over kore, sore, are, kono, sono, ano. But we've gone over these many times before, so this should be somewhat a review. Hopefully, for those of you who still are having trouble with it, it's going to solidify it. Because as we move into Chapter 2, we're actually going to practice using these. So that should help. If you're still having trouble, don't worry, because the practice is coming. It's coming fast and hard, right on your face, okay? But, so I'm gonna do this out of order with hon. Hon first. Why? Because I would like to have this noun ready to go to help you understand these grammar words, vocabulary, okay? And here's the thing. You already know how to do it, because last time we went over Japan, Nihon, right? Remember when we did Nihon? We had hon right there. And I told you at that time, we're learning it as origin, right? Because it's not sun book. Nihon does not mean sun book, it means sun origin of the sun. Okay, because to the Chinese, way back when the name was created, from the Chinese perspective, Japan was in the east, and that's where the sun rises from. So they were the origin of the sun. All right. But today, we're going to learn the regular vocabulary meaning of this. If you just write this all by itself and just say hon, a lot of the time it's just going to mean book. Okay. And so we'll take a look here at the stroke order again, but it's the same thing as last time, nice and simple. You should have no issues with this. If you do, take a look again, you know? You're not going to get arrested. The stroke order police are not coming after you, I promise. If they do, I will help you. Don't worry. I'll get you out of stroke jail. Let me grab this. Thank you. All right. Hong. Just straight up simple. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. Boom. Okay. Your buddy Valen likes to give it a nice, long, endowed top there, but technically it's a little bit shorter, all right, if you want to be really specific about it, all right? This is Hong. Book. Okay, Hong. And now we got that out of the way, let's go over to your good friends, starting with kore. So, when I first introduced you to these sets of characters, I believe I introduced you first to kono, right? And then we had kono hito. So don't worry about that for now. I'm going to show you that in a second. We're going to start with kore, sore, and are. Kore means this, and it just simply means this. So it takes the place of a noun. And by that I mean, let's say you walk into a bookshop and you have a book there on the table. Lovely. You take a look at it. I love books. And the book, you want to buy it. So you take the book and you walk up to the cash register. And let's say the guy behind the register, he's scared because you're a foreigner, and he doesn't, the wheels stop spinning, which sometimes happens in my experience. And he says, well, what do you want to buy? And you say, this. Would you say this book? You could, but could you say that with kore? No. You cannot say, let me first tell you what you cannot say, because this will help. You cannot say kore home. Okay? You cannot say this book with kore. Why? Because if you're gonna have a noun, you're gonna need to use kono, which we're gonna go over in a second. And hello, Steryuki, who says, Steryuki has joined and is in contemplation. So, if we can't do this, well, what is it even good for, and why do we call it this? Well, because in English, we just have no other word to refer to it as. Okay, in Japanese, there's 2 versions of this, 2 versions of that, or even 4 versions of that, technically. So what do we need to do? You cannot do this. You can only say this. I want to buy, for example, the example sentence, I want to buy this. And you're just showing the book, okay? So this takes the place of the noun. You cannot use it with the noun. You follow? Are we understanding? It's so simple once you do get it, but I know it trips people up. Sore. All right, that, near the person you're talking to. So, again, we're in the bookshop, and you're there with your friend, and your friend's over by the racy comic section, and you're just sitting there looking through your science manuals, because you're just studying. You're a good student, you're studying. And you look over to your friend and you say, hey, your friend's got the little comic in his hand, and you say, what's that? Parentheses, near person I'm talking to, my friend, over there, not near me. Okay, would you say, what's that comic? You could, but you can't with sore. Sore is just used by itself in place of the noun, so you just say, what's that? Okay, sore. You following? Isao, Steryuki, the rest of you, class, you follow? Because next we've got are. And it works just like ano. Remember, we've gone over this, we've drilled it. That, away from us / far away, could be used in either situation. Steryuki is following. Steryuki says yes, and I am glad. So with are, let's say you are in the bookshop still with your friend, and you two are side by side. You are now both in the racy comic section, looking at them together, because it piqued your interest before when you asked, what is that? Now you're both there looking at them, and there's the guy from 22 classes ago with your pencil. He stole it from the classroom, and he's outside the window of the bookshop, and you look over and you look at your friend, and then you look over at that guy outside that you know stole your pencil, and you scream, "What is that?" in reference to your pencil. What is that? And you're talking to your friend and you're screaming to the people around you about something very far away, because it is outside the window from the shop, okay? And it's not near us, it's over there, far away, okay? Are. Okay, it's just very simple vocab you got here, okay? Are. So the two versions of that, again, we've gone over this many times. I'm just trying to solidify. I'm trying to take the jello in your head, that jello, and I'm trying to turn it into that steak. It's a terrible analogy. I'm trying to solidify the knowledge, okay? Does that solidify it? Because here's now where things can get different. So before I told you, you cannot use kore, sore, and are with the noun that you're talking about. You use it in place of the noun. Now with kono, sono, and ano, well, we've practiced this. For example, kono hito, sono hito, ano hito, right? This person, that person far away. We know that this is the version of this and that you could use with the noun. And where would the noun go? It would go right after it. So this is closest to the English this that we know. Kono. So before, when you said kore, I want to buy this. Let's say the person is unable to see what you're talking about, and what are you talking about? Valen, what is it? What is this? Kono hon. This book. All right? So this is how you would say this plus being more specific with a noun. All right? Steryuki says, okay. Steryuki is ready to move on because this is baby talk for Steryuki. Steryuki already knows this. Kono hon. All right? And you can see here, this what? Need a noun after. All right? Sono. Same thing as sore, except this time we can use the noun. All right? Whoops. Sono hon. Terrible strokes. Terrible. The worst. Sono hon. That book. And the nuance behind this one is person I'm talking to, right? Near the person I'm talking to. What is that book, you might ask? Okay. And look, that's it. Ano. That. And that what? You need a noun after, right? Because if you didn't have a noun after, you wouldn't want to use ano. You would want to use are. Because it takes the place of a noun, right? The reason we're using kono, sono, ano is because we want to specify in here what we're talking about, the noun. So, far away from us, okay? Ano hon. That book, away from me and you, person I'm speaking to. And possibly very far away, okay? There's no, like, set distance, but you get the hang of it as you practice more, okay? So if you're worried about like how far away exactly, don't think about that. That's unnecessary. You will understand that with time. Trust me. If you use the language. If you don't, then what are you even doing? All right. So that is the vocab, except we're going to do one more, and let's pop it open here. What is that last one? Your pal Denisowski has it right here. Jisho. You know it. You love it because it happens to be the name of the site that we use all the time, because Jisho means dictionary, right? And it consists of 2 kanji right here. And we're going to learn them both right now because we're learning this word, and we're going to throw it into our rotation, right? Maintaining a rotation? No? Yes? You better be. If you are, please throw this in there. And I will be honest, I would throw in kore, sore, are. And I would also, if you want a tip from me in your rotation, I would do kono, sono, ano, but I wouldn't just do them by themselves. To help your brain solidify that notion that you need a noun afterward, I would do kono, hon. And that way you're practicing kono and hon at the same time, because they both should be in your rotation anyway, right? Kono hon, sono hon, ano hon, right? And yes, you can replace hon with any other noun, of course, but that's the noun that we're learning today. You could do kono jisho as well once you've learned it. You could switch up your rotation like that as well. But for now, we still have to learn it. So let's do that. And we always take a look at the stroke orders. Look, it's a vertical 2-parter, right? So remember, if we're working in a square, right, we want to separate that square out into 2 vertical pieces when we're thinking about proportions. So before you even put pen to paper, please be careful. Do not take up your whole square with the first left half, because that would be a bad idea. Nitrocide has subscribed at tier 1. Nitrocide, thank you very much. Nitrocide, you are officially a subscriber, and I need to make the emotes. Sorry about that, Nitrocide. I'm gonna make the emotes, and you're gonna have them, okay? Long time no see. Yeah, long time no see, Nitrocide. Welcome back. Hope you're having a good time. Hope you're doing well with your Japanese studies. And thank you so much for the subscription. So we're going to learn this part of the word first. Take a look at the stroke order, okay? And be careful because let's look at it first. It is how I remember it, right? It is, okay. What I want you to be careful of is this top stroke here, and not anytime, but most times when you see a top stroke that's horizontal like that, it's usually going to start from right to left, and you're probably used to starting from left to right for a lot of strokes, so just be careful with that. Yeah, but other than that, it's not too difficult. So let's take a look here. Jisho. All right, the first half of the word, because this part of the word has 2 halves as well. Right, we've got our little box there. Boom. You're gonna see this little like accordion compressor thing a lot. This shows up in a lot of kanji. Okay, there you go. Not the best handwriting, Valen, but what are you gonna do? All right, and the other one right here, the shou portion. Now this one's very useful because this shows up in a lot of words, and just by itself is, well, it says right here, but I want you to be careful with that because this is not, you can't use this by itself as a verb. You need hiragana attached to it. In this case, it would be, if you're doing the casual form, it would be ku, kaku. And let's get rid of kanji. If we just wrote kaku, it's going to show up here. Go down verb with a ku ending. Remember the verbs have endings? We're not doing that today, but just a little review there. So this would be to write, right? By itself, it does not mean to write, but it's associated with that, okay? You can see down here, there's all sorts of different ways that it's used. Books, documents, calligraphy, penmanship, handwriting, letters, notes, drawing room, study, publishing house, writing alcove, letter, example of complaint, etc. Anyway, why am I saying that? It's a good one to know. So even if you don't plan on writing dictionary all the time, I would still practice Jisho, as it'll help you practice this character, which is going to show up later. Okay, so let's take a look at the strokes. It's a lot of horizontal stuff going on here, so I would not blame you if you look at the animation, then you're like, what? And then you might want to, don't touch the microphone. Don't touch it. You might want to look at the exploded view here slowly as you write, if this is your first time doing it. Okay, so let's take a look. Do that, slice it in half, then finish it. 2 horizontal lines, 1 vertical. do a box. Before you finish it, give it a shelf. And then slap the end on it. You got it? All right, good. Let's do it. Just like that, okay? Then slice it in half. And note that the slice portion is somewhat longer. If you really want to be nice and neat and tidy, somewhat longer than the portion you just did. And then you close off that little fork there, right? Then you're gonna give it, it's about the same size, and then a little bit longer. Close it off with the vertical. Give it the box, and we're done. Jisho, all right? If I'm writing slowly and with a big fat stroke, it's gonna look terrible like this, all right? Don't worry. Anybody can read this. Anybody can read my handwriting. And they're gonna be able to read your handwriting too, as long as you just got the right strokes in there, okay? So this is Jisho Dictionary, okay? Now you know what that website is that we've been using this whole time. This is it, okay? Good job. That is vocabulary for today. And that's not all, though. Remember Chapter 1, Renshu B, aka Practice B? Remember this? Remember our good friends here, Mr. Taylor, Miss Simone, Miss Sasaki, Mr. Smith, and Mr. Becker? Well, guess what? They're not the only ones in town. Boom. A whole new cast of great, loving people with their own personalities, their own problems, their own story arcs. You know, these guys, they're here too. And they're also part of Renshu B. And they're not the same people that are in your book if you're following with Minna no Nihongo, because I don't break copyright law. Okay? I make my own stuff. It just so happens to be very similarly structured. Look, I'm trying to skirt the line there so that if you have the book, you can follow along and know what's going on and get extra practice out of your book because it's different content. But basically, we're doing very similar stuff. Okay? Okay, good. Look. Let me open this up. Let's pop open question 1 here. Oh my, that's a lot. Relax. We're gonna take it slow. Okay. You know what? Before we even look at this, here's what we're gonna do. Let's introduce our new cast here. Who do we got here? Our new example. Remember that this character, they means example, right? Mr. Taylor was our example last time, and this time our example is Mr. Xing, and he is 38 years old, and he is from, what's this vocab word that we had last time or time before that even? I don't even remember. Indo. Indo is India. Okay. Mr. Singh from India, and he works for ITV. Well, you can hopefully read that. And then what's this? Shine. So does he work for ITV Shine? No. In English, that would be weird, because in English, what ITV Shine means is ITV company. That's not it. Employee. So he is an ITV company employee, right? And why is it that way? Because we have the ing portion here, right? If we only had sha, this would be ITV sha, that would be ITV company. ITV kaisha, ITV sha. You could do it a bunch of different ways, but remember, when we have shain, that is company employee, right? So he is a company employee of ITV. What is ITV? I made it up, but it may or may not exist actually, because having 3 letters for company name, I mean, they're almost all taken. I mean, how many possibilities are there? All right, let's move on. Number 1, this is the guy that's actually we're going to start with the actual practice down here. Mr. Yoon. And Mr. Yoon is 47 years old from, what's this? Remember this? Should be in your rotation by now. And how do we say it? Kangoku. Kangoku is South Korea. Mr. Yoon, 47 years old, from South Korea. And what is Mr. Yoon? There's a blast from the past vocab word here. Remember this one? And if you don't remember the pronunciation, I got it right there. It's very tiny on the screen, though. Isha, right? Isha is doctor. And just to really tell you all about him, what's that in the parenthesis there? If you can read that, I don't know what... If somebody's watching this on their phone, good luck to you. Hopefully you've got a big screen to see that. I should probably do a better job of that next time, huh? What it says is Tokyo Byoin. Remember Byoin? You probably don't know how to read Tokyo yet because we have not done it. But if you can't, the hiragana is also there. Tokyo Byoin, not Byoin. Byoin would be like a hair salon, right? Not that. Byoin. Tokyo Byoin is Tokyo Hospital. Mr. Yoon, from South Korea, 47 years old, works as a doctor for Tokyo Hospital, Tokyo Byoin. And who else we got here? Miss Lee, 29 years old, from Thai, aka Thailand, right? And what does she do for a living? Well, sound it out. What do we got here? It's in katakana, and you've got a nobas there. Thai. Yeah. Well, what is this? What is this? Yeah. I wonder if it'll show up in the old Jisho, because let's just say you really don't know, and you just are having a tough time thinking about the English that it could possibly be, because that's what it is. Let's just type it in there. Yeah. What? Air. And actually, you can choose to or not choose to use the nobas. As you can see down here, it is used here in air management. Air packing, bubble wrap. Yeah, so look, you can use it either way. I think we've chosen to use it. Anyway, it means air. Thai air. Oh. Airlines, what does she do? Maybe she flies the plane. I don't know. Does she? We'll find out. Maybe never. Depends on the activities. Anyway, that's her. And remember Mr. Silva from Brazil? Shiriba-san is 51 years old. And what is Shiriba-san? Shiriba-san is NFT. Okay, we can read that. NFT. And here's an early vocab word that we had from a while ago. It should still be in your rotation, hopefully. Kenkyusha. Kenkyusha means researcher. Mr. Silva is researching the NFTs because he just can't understand why they're so popular and how they're making so much money. So he is a man of science, and he is devoting his life now to... He's got the beaker there, and he's putting the NFTs inside, and he's mixing them up, and he's seeing what makes them tick. So he is an NFT researcher. And now, look, technically, the way the book has this set up with a different acronym here or whatever, this is actually doesn't mean NFT researcher. It's like researcher of a company named NFT, right? I'm just doing the jokes. You know how I am, right? Okay. So look, well, just don't worry about it. You won't get confused. Don't worry. Young. Our last one for today. Young-san is 24 years old. And what's this? Remember this? We just did this one. 中国 China. Okay, 中国 China. And you should know this too, right here. We learned this early on. 学生. Students from China. And where is she studying? Well, we've got that right here in parentheses. You probably don't know the first two characters, but that's okay. You don't need to memorize them or throw them into your rotation. I just want you to look at them. so that you have some reference for what's going on. And those first two are Tohoku, where your buddy Valen lives. Coincidence? There's no such thing as coincidences. Tohoku, Daigaku. And Daigaku is, as you remember, hopefully, University. Tohoku University. Okay. There's your cast of characters for the day, and now let's go ahead with the practice and see what's going on. So here's what I pulled up before. And what do we do first? We read the example, and always do that if you're following along in the book. Otherwise, you're not going to have any idea what they want you to do. Okay? So, number one. Number one starts with Bekka-san. What? Bekka-san is not up here. He used to be here, if you remember. There he is, right, from last time? So why are they talking about Bekka-san? Is that a mistake, Valen? No. Just keep reading. Okay, it'll all be clear. Bekka-san wa kaishain desu. Okay? You should remember the structure here. We've got the is bucket still. Wa and desu. We're talking about Bekka-san and kaishain, so company employee. Bekka-san is, Mr. Becker is a company employee. Okay? End of the statement. And he was, if you go back and look, he was a company employee. So what are they saying here? Shing-san, okay, Mr. Shing here. Shing-san mo? Mo. Remember what we said about this? Also. And specifically in this case where we have the is bucket, what are we technically saying? Is also. Or if you had more than one person here, it would be are also, right? Because there is no distinction in Japanese. It's always the same thing. So, little refresher there. Mo kaishain desu ka? We're asking a question with the is bucket. So, Mr. Becker is a company employee. Shing-san is also company employee, question mark, or more naturally put in English, is Mr. Singh also a company employee? All right, and what's the answer? Right here, let's take a look. Well, is he? Well, yeah, he works for a company, and that company is called ITV. All right, maybe he manages that big wall of screens that they always show you whenever they're talking about TV studios and news broadcasting on, you know, movies and stuff. So what's the answer? ... Thinking, computing. Hai. Shing-san mo kaishain desu. Mr. Singh is also a company employee. Yes. And inevitably somebody will think, can I just say hai? Can I just say yes? Yeah. Yeah, you could. Works the same as English. You don't need to repeat all this stuff. Why are we repeating it? Because we're trying to learn a language. In order to do that, you gotta practice. Jeez. Alright. So, here's what I want you to do. Just like last time, I want you to do these in your notebook. Okay? If you're watching live, I understand that that's probably a little bit tough because I'm not going to give you much time. I'm going to give a couple seconds here. If you're watching on YouTube, I will put the little pause bit above my head and say, pause now. And when that shows up, I want you to pause now and do this. So go ahead and pause now and do this. Nitrocide, Stereoyuki, Yisao, how's it going over there? You getting through this? I know for some of you this is probably still stuff you already know or at least familiar with. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at the answers. If I can find them, there they are. Number 1. Taylor-san wa ginkoin desu. Right, Mr. Taylor is a bank employee, and if you go back and look, he is. Trust me. Just trust me on these. They are what I say they are. Yun-san mo ginkoin desu ka? Yun. Okay, well that is number 1. Mr. Yun right here. Is Mr. Yun a ginkoin? Is Mr. Yun a bank employee? Is he? No. What is he? He's a doctor. For the bank. He doesn't work for the bank. He saves people's lives. Okay? Pull it up. So what do you want to say here? いいえ。ユンさんは銀行員じゃありません. So remember this? We have our little... I don't know why I didn't put じゃありません in white there. Excuse me. It's probably going to be repeated throughout all of these because I always copy and paste. So what are we saying here? Here's a question that somebody asked me once. Well, I thought because we're using mo here, do we not also put mo here? No. So when you're answering in the affirmative, you're saying, yes, he is also blank. You can use mo. If you're saying no, then you're not... I suppose technically you could. You could say, いえ、ユンさんも銀行員じゃありません. It would mean, like, literally, no, Mr. Yoon is not also a bank employee. But I think more naturally put, you would switch to wa and just use the simple negative is bucket, right? So not. You would just say, no, he's not a bank employee. He's not a bank clerk. He doesn't work for the bank, right? So that's why I'm using wa here and not mo, in case you're worried. Okay. Number 2, we've got Lee-san. So, Sasaki-san wa Nihonjin desu. Lee-san mo Nihonjin desu ka? Nihonjin, remember this? Nihon, Japan. And when you affix the character hito, person, becomes jin, and then you have Japanese person, right? Nihonjin. Sasaki-san wa Nihonjin desu. Lee-san mo Nihonjin desu ka? Is Miss Lee also a Japanese person? Stereyuki says, いいえ. And Stereyuki, you would be correct. いいえ. Lee-san wa Nihonjinじゃありません. And a quick note again, for those of you who may be curious, we could also say, it's in place of ja, we could say ではありません. And it would mean the same thing. It would just be a step more formal, step more polite. Okay? You could also say janai. I know somebody asked me that last time. That's fine too. It's just more casual. And also, you could say いいえ. Lee-san wa. Let's say we don't want to say what she isn't. Let's say we want to say what she is. Lee-san wa. What would you say? いいえ. Lee-san wa. Illustrator, what the? That's the biggest circle you've ever done to me. タイ人です. Oops. いいえ、リーさんはタイ人です. Yeah, you could say this too. If that's what you wrote in your notebook, fine, good for you. Give yourself a little pat. This is fine too. Okay? Just so happens that the book wants you to say no and in the negative form here, right? So that's all that's going on. All right, number 3. スミスさんは先生です。シルバーさんも先生ですか? Is Mr. Silver, he's not Mr. Silver. I'm going to keep thinking that. It's Silva. Mr. Silva also a teacher? Remember sensei is teacher? No. He researches NFTs. And he doesn't teach about it. He does it for his own sanity, not for you. So the answer is いいえ. シルバーさんは先生じゃありません. Okay, you getting the hang of this? And these are all in the negative. Why don't we pop one into the positive here? All right, number 4. シモンさんは学生です。ヤンさんも学生ですか? Well, is Miss Young here also a student? Ding, 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 ding. Yes, she is. Student alert. Pop it. Thinking. はい、ヤンさんも学生です. And you see, we answered in the affirmative here, and we said she's also a student. はい、ヤンさんも学生です. Could you replace this if you're just having a regular conversation? Instead of mo, could you also say wa? はい、ヤンさんは学生です. You could. It's just, in this case, we're matching is also with is also. Okay? Stereyuki, you got it. The answer is はい. And you could also just say hi. That's fine too. All right. So this was is also mo. And it's real easy. You're just replacing the wa in the is bucket with mo. And now you're saying is also instead of just is. Okay? Boom. Done it. So let's move on. What do we got next? Excuse me. Let's close this and close this. Number 6. This one's fairly straightforward. Get some practice using kata. Right? Remember kata? Remember this guy here? Which means person. Stop giving me extra circles, Illustrator, please. So does hito, right? This is kata. It's a little review time here. Kata and hito. Both mean person. What's the difference? Remember the difference? Hito is casual or just default. It's not impolite, it's just default. Kata is just more polite. Okay, it's being more respectful. If you're referring to somebody as a kata, you're just being a little bit more respectful, okay? So, and now we're also getting practice. Konbanwa, minasan, says Scorpex18. Scorpex18, welcome, good evening. Konbanwa. Scorpex18, pull up a seat. You are here for the last portion of the class, but hopefully still useful to you. So we're also getting practice with ano here, which we just went over again today. Ano kata. That person. And what kind of that are we talking about here? What's the difference between sono kata and ano kata? Sono would be insinuating that the person I'm talking about is near the person I'm speaking to. So who's that, for example, who's that person next to you, friend of mine? So we're not using sono, we're using ano. Ano means that person, like way over there, away from me and you talking to each other here, right? Remember? You remember. Come on. We've done it a million times. Ano kata wa donata. Remember we learned dare and donata. And they both mean who. And donata is just the more formal version of who. And why are we doing that? Because we're just matching the formality of the sentence. Because we already started using kata, we might as well just be formal throughout the whole thing. So, ano kata wa donata desu ka? Simple is bucket. Donata is in the middle. So what are we saying? That person, parentheses, far away from us. Is bucket is, and what's inside? Donata is who? That person is who? Natural English time. Who is that person? Right? I think you should be able to follow that by now. That's nice and easy. And, well, we're looking at the example here. So we're talking about Mr. Singh. And Shing-san desu is the answer. It is Mr. Singh. ITV no shain desu. And, well, what's going on here? Is Mr. Singh, or you could more naturally translate it into English as that's Mr. Singh. ITV no shain. And we can see here it says ITV shain. Why have we added no, the possessive particle? Why have we done that? I'm going to tell you right now, you don't need to, but it just feels like a more complete sentence if you add the possessive particle here. So this is kind of a more advanced thing that I'm showing you here, but if you have like somebody's job title or something, it could be on a business card, it could be on a piece of paper or something, or you have like some kind of introductory card here where you're like showing them, and it's not a sentence, it's just saying what they are. You don't necessarily need to put the possessive particle in there. ITV shain, ITV company employee, right? But if we're actually writing out a sentence, even though we could just get rid of that, it feels more complete to use full grammar here. He is a company employee of the possessive particle of ITV, the company named ITV, right? So that's why we threw the possessive particle in there. And that's what it's saying. So here, right here, is Mr. Singh, that's Mr. Singh, is a company employee of ITV. And you'll notice in here, even though there is a Japanese word for he, we do not need it. He would be, by the way, kare. We'll go over that much later. It's got its own kanji. And you could say, kare wa ITV no shain desu. Not necessary, though. And later on, when we learn it, we'll use it. But for now, since it's not necessary and it keeps things simple, I'm pretty sure that's why the book is not putting it here, because you're just starting out and you haven't learned that yet. But I want you to know that for the future, that you can use that. So the problem is, in English, we can't just say is company employee. It would just be broken English. So in English, I would translate it as he is, or he's a company employee. Or more specific, if we're actually translating this sentence here, he's an ITV, and you could say company, or you could omit it, employee. He's an ITV employee, or he's an ITV company employee, right? So that's why we don't have he in there, because we haven't learned it yet, and it's not necessary in Japanese because we know who we're talking about based on context. Okay? In English, even if you know who you're talking about, you still need it. In Japanese, you do not. So that is the example. And I want you to go ahead and I want you to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Mr. Yoon, Miss Lee, Mr. Silva, and Miss Young. Okay? And my suggestion to you would be to write out the question and write it every time, because it's going to give you practice writing and reading. And if you're not in front of somebody and you're going to be embarrassed, don't be embarrassed. Just say it. You're going to get practice speaking too, because especially if you're not living in Japan, which is probably most of my viewership learning this, you need to practice speaking if you actually want to get good at the language, of course. So there's plenty of places online where you can do that, but at the very least, if you're not speaking with like online pen pals and stuff, at the very least, try speaking when you're writing the stuff out in your notebook to practice, okay? So write out the question and write out the answer for each one of these, all right? Go ahead and do that now. If you're watching on YouTube, pause now. Okay, let's go. Here are the answers to number 6. Starting with the first one. あの方はどなたですか? Well, Yoonさんです. Mr. Yoon. 東京病院の医者です. And I wouldn't blame you if you just wrote isha desu, because I haven't taught you how to write Tokyo. You could look it up and you could write it if you want, or you could just write byoin no isha desu. Anytime I don't introduce you to how to write certain kanji, I'm not expecting you to write it in your answers, but if you want that sweet extra credit, you should do it. You can look it up on Jisho, very easy. But you don't necessarily need to throw it in your rotation right now, because it's not part of our vocab list, okay? So, Yoon-san desu. Tokyo Byoin no isha desu. Mr. Yoon. This is Mr. Yoon. He's a doctor at Tokyo Hospital. And I want to be careful because I'm translating into natural English and saying he's a doctor at. This no here does not ever mean at. Okay, it is always of. It's the possessive particle. However, it just sounds unnatural in English to say doctor of Tokyo Hospital. So that's why I'm saying at in English, okay? There's always going to be times where I have to explain that because people will get confused. It's just natural translation versus direct translation. So that's all that's going on there. Number 2. あの方はどなたですか? Number 2. リーさんです。タイエアの社員です。Miss Lee, a employee of Thai Air. Thai Air の社員です。Alright, number 3. あの方はどなたですか? シルバーさんです。NFT の研究者です。Okay, so repeating that pattern, we're using the possessive particles here, because like I told you before, it just makes a sentence more complete in Japanese if it's a sentence. When you're just doing a job title, not necessary. Okay? And number 4. あの方はどなたですか？ヤンさんです。東北大学の学生です。Okay. Miss Young, a student of Tohoku University. All right. That's it. And we got a little bit of time here before I gotta go skedaddle, but we're gonna do it. Let's do it. All right. Pop it off with number 7. It's because it's easy, it's simple, and I want you to do this before next time, because we're gonna move on next time. I taught you how to say years old, and I taught you some numbers, and then we just didn't really use much of them, did we? Here's your chance, okay? And that's why we are saying how old these people are. So, the example, Mr. Singh. Shing-san wa, and how do we pronounce this? How do we pronounce these numbers? So you might not remember these, because we really haven't practiced them much, and that's okay. And I want to show you, here's how you pronounce that number, and sai at the end, like it shows you here, is the kanji and the way to say years old, right? You always need that if you're trying to say how old somebody is. So what do we got? Sanju. What is sanju? 30, right? And what is this character? This is hachi, right? Hachi is 8, if you remember. But what are we doing here? You'll see we've got ha and little tsu. How do we pronounce little tsu? I've only mentioned this once, very briefly. You don't pronounce little tsu. It's telling you to give it a little bit of a pause before the next pronunciation comes about. So if I'm confusing you, don't worry. When you listen to how I pronounce it, it'll hopefully make sense. So what we're trying to say here is sanju ha sai. Sanju hasai. Do you hear that? Sanju hasai. You hear I'm not saying sanju hasai. Sanju hasai. Ha. Little pause, little pause. And then we slide into the sai, right? Sanju hasai. And why are we not saying sanju hachisai? I'm actually curious if that even is technically possible. I think it is technically okay, like grammatically, but you would never hear somebody say sanju hachisai. Sanju hasai is it just changes. The pronunciation just changes when you're using an age. Okay? And why is that? Probably because the pronunciation after it is s, right? And hachi is difficult. It's annoying to say, right? So just in English, when we change pronunciations to be softer so that they flow into each other, like booties, my booties. My little booties. Maybe in American English you'd say booties, because it just flows easier, right? Terrible example, Valen, but the point is that's probably why, because it's just easier to say hasai instead of hachisai. Okay. Now that we got that out of the way, jeez, because all of these are going to be different. So I want you to write them. You should be able to write them just fine. But if you can't pronounce them because you don't remember, that's okay. We're going to go over that in the end. All right. So Shing-san wa 38歳です. Mr. Singh is bucket, right? And in there, we just got the age. Mr. Singh is 38 years old. And that's it. All right, nice and easy. So let's go ahead and do a 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and pause right now. Okay, answer time. Pop them open. Boom. Yun さんは47歳です。47。Right? 47歳。リーさんは29歳です。シルバーさんは51歳。Okay, be careful. I'm not saying 51歳. Again, just like ha instead of hachi, I'm saying I instead of ichi. 51歳. And lastly, Yang さんは24歳です。24歳? Am I saying 24歳? No. 24歳. Remember, 4 has shi and yon. Same with 7 has nana and shichi. I'm not saying 47歳. I'm saying 47歳. Alright? And just to drive that home, help you out here, here were those pronunciations that we just did. take a look at these and check your work. If you want to pause again and practice pronunciation, here they are. Right? 47. And then 歳 for years old, right? 29. 51歳. 51歳. 24. 24歳. Okay? And hey, that about wraps up today's lesson. So that actually finishes off 練習 B, if you're following along with Minna no Nihongo, the textbook that I recommend. So next time we are going to be moving on, and we're not going to be moving on into chapter 2. There's still some of chapter 1 left. I got to kind of think about how I want to structure it, because some of the stuff that the book does I don't think is necessary. So I will think about that for next time and set it up, and hopefully we'll see you then as well. So look, I hope you all had a good time today and you learned lots. I hope so. If this was just a review for you, if it was just a review, then cool. That's cool too. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna continue on. I've got some other videos popping out soon too. Not just the Japanese language stuff. I got, you know, I popped out the spring video recently. I'm going to put up a visit to a shrine. Actually, a rather large shrine. I don't know why it's a shrine. It should be. I always think it's a temple, because there's shrines and temples, and shrines are tiny. Like this guy behind me here. That's a shrine. Temples are large, right? Anyway, I'm working on a video for that. And I've also recently filmed a kagura performance. Kagura is a traditional song and dance. And I filmed 3 different types of it. So I happen to have some connections, people in the performing sector. And if there's interest in that, yeah, you know what? I might throw that up there too, over on the YouTube, if you want to see some kagura. And it's not going to have my dumb face and voice in it. It's going to be them, focused on them. And yes, I did get the permission to film and to post, so it's all good. Yeah, so that's what's coming up. I've got some other stuff in the works. The Japanese language class will continue. And boy, Valen, you haven't been doing much gaming lately, have you? I have. I've just been doing it off stream, blowing off the steam. You know what I mean? I do want to get some gaming going on again, but of course, this is the main gig we got going here, right? So, anyway. Hope this helped you out, and look, you have yourselves a good one, and I'll see you next time, so take care.